Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Hoop Hogs video mailbag. Curtis Wilkerson here with Inside Arkansas and the pod at the Palace with another basketball question. It comes from you guys. It's been a lot of fun. We do one of these a day, and we've been getting all kinds of in the weeds, but I think this is a perfect question in light of finding out the official dates for the Arkansas basketball exhibitions coming up, with Kansas coming to Bud Walton Arena October 25th, and then Arkansas going over to face TCU at Dickies Arena on November 1st. It's going to be a lot of fun. We talked about big picture Arkansas versus Kansas and the matchups, and that was real neat. We got a follow-up question. It's a little bit more specific that I wanted to dive into today. It comes from Cody. He says, how much should we let Jonas Aidoo's matchup against Hunter Dickinson in the Kansas game influence our expectations for him this season? Well, in ways, I think back to last year, and we were almost over influenced by that Purdue game, right? Remember the job that like Chandler Lawson did against Zach Edey? We thought maybe Chandler Lawson was going to be the best post defender in the country, and he was solid, but obviously it didn't turn out the way maybe you thought walking out of that Purdue game. And it's easy to say like, no, I'm going to take this exhibition with a grain of salt. We did that last year before the Purdue game, but they looked so good that it was really hard not to walk out of there and go, they might be onto something. So we're going to try again this season with this Kansas game, but I have a feeling that Razorback fans and probably myself included, I'm going to try not to, but we're probably going to overreact to the results. But I am fascinated by the Jonas Aidoo, Hunter Dickinson angle of this because honestly, I think you want to see it be a good competitive matchup between two of the better bigs in the country, as opposed to an outright domination. That's kind of where I'm at with, Jonas Aidoo was so improved last season. I've said many times, I thought he was the most improved player in the SEC. He might've been the most improved player in the country. He was really, really good for Tennessee. But he didn't always bring his best against the best. Right. And that's kind of where I'm at with Aidoo. That's what I want to see. So I've heard people talk about, like a lack of physicality with Jonas Aidoo. I think that's really overblown. He was one of the best rim protectors in the league. You don't play for Rick Barnes if you aren't physical. That's not an issue. But for me, I think it's more about elevating your play to being elite when you're playing against the elite, I guess would be the best way that I could probably put it. In two games against Purdue last season, at Tennessee, they played him in Maui and then they played him in the NCAA tournament in the Elite Eight. Jonas Aidoo averaged 2.5 points and 0.5 rebounds in those two games. And Zach Edey really ate. And I get it. He's the back-to-back, reigning player of the year at that point. But you want a little bit better than that. You know what I'm saying? He didn't really have much for Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton when they played him in the Sweet 16. He was effective against, I think about the SEC, like against Janai Broome. I remember watching that game. I think he had like 14 and 7. So he was effective offensively against Janai Broome and Auburn, but Broome had a really big game on the other end. And against, I think the rest of the competition, so like that tier 1A of bigs, or big physical teams, I thought he played really, really well. I mean, he dominated Arkansas, had big games against Texas A&M, Florida, a bunch of teams in the SEC. But if you're going to be, considered an elite big man, which I think is what Arkansas wants him to be, that's probably the NIL package that he's getting. And he was one of the top 2 to 3, centers coming out of the transfer portal. Then you want him to be able to compete in this matchup against Hunter Dickinson. They've faced each other before. They played each other in Maui last season. Kansas won that game by 9. I distinctly remember sitting at the sportsbook bar at Atlantis in the Bahamas with Scotty watching this game after Arkansas had finished up playing. And Aidoo was pretty good on one end of the floor. Honestly, he had 8 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks. I think you take that all day if you're Arkansas from Jonas Aidoo, especially against a guy like Hunter Dickinson. The problem was on the other end, Dickinson finished with 17 points and 20 boards, 20 rebounds. That's insane. And, there's factors that play into some of those final stats, foul trouble, and everything like that. I know, Jonas Aidoo wasn't the only big man that played for Tennessee. They had Toby Awaka and some other guys who were mixing and matching in there, but he's your dude, in the front court. So you want better than that. Like if Arkansas plays this exhibition, they get 8, 11, and 3. He also had 3 steals, by the way. If you get that from Jonas Aidoo in this Kansas exhibition, I'd probably walk out of there feeling pretty good. But what I don't want to see, as good as Hunter Dickinson is, and he's so skilled offensively, he really is. 17 points. I mean, you could probably live with that because that's probably going to be right at or maybe even a little bit under his season average. 20 rebounds just can't happen. You can't be giving up 20 rebounds to anybody. That's like some of the nonsense we saw, Texas A&M doing against Arkansas teams under Eric Musselman, where they just gobble up offensive boards, whatever. And so how is he going to handle that? The thing about Hunter Dickinson is, and he's a big, strong dude, but he's really skilled. He can step out and shoot the 3, so it's going to challenge Aidoo that way in terms of getting out on the perimeter. Can finish over either shoulder, really good back to the basket game. He's not, even though he's huge, he's not the biggest brute physical presence, which I think people really want to see, Aidoo kind of step his game up against. But hey, if you can go in there and match up with one of the elite big men in the country and come out of it with a stalemate, or even if Hunter Dickinson gets the best of him, I'm not going to look at it the rest of the year and go, Arkansas's toast, in the paint this season. I won't feel that way at all, but you want it to be a more competitive battle than it was a season ago. And I think you start to feel pretty good about where you're at, and then see how he carries it over to the next week against a TCU team that's got a lot of really talented guards. But their big man, their center, is going to be the guy who is, effectively, I guess would have been Hunter Dickinson's backup had he not left Kansas. That's Ernest Uday, who I don't remember if he played in the game or not, but he was on that roster when Arkansas played Kansas in the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. I bet Aidoo gets the best of that matchup. So it's a good question. I think in terms of intrigue with the matchups in that exhibition, that's going to be the one I've got my eye on the closest, followed by like the DeJuan Harris versus Boogie Flan, which I talked about, so I don't have to rehash all that. AJ Storr versus Carter Knox. There's some really good individual matchups that I think can give us a decent barometer of where these guys are at. But you're going to hear Cal say it over and over again. What you see from Arkansas in the preseason and early on is not what you're going to see from him in March. He means that from a team and continuity standpoint, but also an individual standpoint. The factor that I almost got through this entire video without bringing up, in terms of Jonas Aidoo and his improvement, how's the Kenny Payne factor going to play out, right? As the biggest thing about bringing him in, it's not because of his head coaching background, but he was widely known as one of the best assistants in college basketball, and he's the big man whisperer. And so you get developed as a big under Rick Barnes. You absolutely do. And we've seen that with Jonas Aidoo. Does he have another level, another gear that he can kick it into? If there is somebody out there who can get that out of him, it's probably Kenny Payne. So I'm really anxious to see what that looks like after a full, summer and into the preseason with him. So a good question, Cody. I appreciate it, man, and hope you're doing well. And thanks to everybody, as always, for pitching in with the questions, the interaction and engagement. It's a lot of fun. If you want to know how to get involved in this, check out my Twitter profile at Kurt Wilkerson _. I've got a thread pinned there, the Hoop Hogs video mailbag. If you have a question, Arkansas basketball related, the team, recruiting, scheduling, like whatever, we've done all kinds of stuff. Throw it out there. I'd love to answer it. Or if you watch these YouTube videos, hop in the comments, and I always go back through those and gather the questions that come through. So make sure you do that. Get subscribed to our YouTube channel at Inside Arkansas so you can follow along. And we'll be back. We post one of these every morning at 8 a.m. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with the Pod at the Palace, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Everybody have a good one.